Every winter, influenza becomes a public health headache with vaccination programs and surveillance schemes. This year, an early start to the Australian season has resulted in nearly 200,000 notifications and 383 deaths so far. The burden of disease in children less than 5 years old is substantial. Morbidity impacts the health system with GP consultations and hospitalisations, whilst lost productivity of parents taking time off work incurs socio-economic costs estimated in the billions of dollars. Last year, Australia introduced a free flu vaccine for all children less than 5 years old, which saw a 5-fold increased uptake of the vaccine from 2017 to 25% coverage. The traditional trivalent vaccine, which covers 3 viral strains of influenza, was replaced by inactivated quadrivalent vaccine, which covers an additional B strain. Considering the local context of the newly implemented free quadrivalent vaccine and apparent paucity of evidence, my research question is, what is the safety and immunogenicity of inactivated quadrivalent vaccine compared to trivalent vaccine in children under 5? Due to the relatively recent licensing of quadrivalent vaccine in young children, there is very little high-quality evidence of its effectiveness in this age group. A systematic review from last year of 41 clinical trials only included trivalent vaccine. They concluded that it had minimal effect in the under 2s, but older children had a reduced relative risk of disease of about 50%. Moreover, RCTs use either placebo as a comparator or non-flu vaccine such as hepatitis A, as in this large robust study from last year published in The Lancet. I chose a phase 2 randomised trial from America that compared the immunogenicity and safety of the quadrivalent influenza vaccine to the trivalent influenza vaccine. The trial objectives align well with the change in vaccine use in Australia. Firstly, the population. The study enrolled 316 children who were either healthy or had chronic illness but were well at the time, from 12 centres across America. They were aged between 6 and 35 months. Exclusion criteria were listed and were compatible with other similar studies. There were no details about the reason the children presented to the centres, nor geographical areas they were drawn from. As randomisation was performed by the sponsors, GSK, there is a risk of selection bias in this study. Minimisation algorithms were used for centres, subgroup ages of 6 to 17 months and 18 to 35 months, and vaccination status. Intervention. Children were allocated to either the vaccine under investigation, GSK's quadrivalent vaccine, full dose of 15 micrograms of antigen per viral strain, or Sanofi's trivalent vaccine, licensed with 7.5 micrograms per antigen. These are the same vaccines that are used in Australia. Antigen doses were validated by assay. Seasonal strain types were reported in the study, but not preservatives or excipient ingredients. Both groups were treated the same per protocol for vaccine administration, including priming, where vaccine-naive children had 2 doses 28 days apart. Parents were supplied with diary cards to record reactions and symptoms until 28 days post-vaccination, but there was no explanation of the instructions given to the parents, nor copies of the diary cards themselves. Therefore, it was difficult to assess the risk of performance bias or subjective measurement error in this aspect of the study for safety and reactogenicity. Objective outcomes were measured per protocol cohort of 280 children. They were blood titers taken at baseline and 28 days post-vaccination course, and they were measured in the sponsor's lab. The results were reported in accordance with the Centre for Biologics Evaluation and Resources criterion to enable licensing. The study endpoints were consistent with other similar studies, including geometric mean titers, seropositivity, seroconversion and seroprotection rates, and mean geometric increases. Results concluded that all immunogenicity objectives were met. The outcomes of safety and reactogenicity from the intention to treat cohort of 314 children seemed logical. It was unclear, though, who assessed the diary cards or how the symptoms were classified. Other studies used medical dictionaries to validate and standardise the symptoms. Also, no power calculations were performed for the safety criterion part of the study, so the relatively small number of participants may have missed some of the rarer side effects of the vaccine. Only absolute numbers of outcomes were reported in this study. No statistical inferences were performed. I believe that these results can be applied to children in Australia under 5 years old, because previous studies have shown that older children are more tolerant to vaccines and have better immune responses, although the results are probably better generalised to the American population because of this significant number of African American children in this study. Also, this study only investigated the full-dose quadrivalent vaccine by GlaxoSmithKline. Australia also uses the half-dose quadrivalent vaccine from Sanofi, so a separate study would be required to investigate this product. My main criticism of this study is that there was insufficient explanation of the methodology, making it difficult to assess the robustness and the risk of bias. In the next clip, Scott and Kathy give a parent's perspective of using the flu vaccine in young children. They immunised their 5 and 3-year-old daughters for the first time this year to protect the 4-month-old baby. Okay. Both of you, do you have any concerns about the flu vaccine for children?
No, I would assume that it's been properly researched into, and I think the dangers of getting the flu probably outweigh the risk that anything that the vaccine would have.
Okay. Good. Scott?
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think you would hope that if it's offered to children, it's been clinically proven to be beneficial, so that would be fair enough. I would accept that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. This article is relevant to my area of uncertainty because it adds evidence that the quadrivalent vaccine is superior to the trivalent vaccine and helps justify Australia's decision to change their program. However, the study only looked at the physiological responses in individuals, and this may not translate to clinical protection. Further step-up studies are required to assess vaccine efficacy, effectiveness and impact on populations, including disease burden, policy impact and cost benefit of the vaccine. In summary, I feel more confident to reassure parents that the quadrivalent inactivated vaccine is a safe and effective way to protect their children from influenza this year. However, I would qualify that by saying to the parents, even if their children do get vaccinated, they can still get sick from plenty of other viruses that are circulating in the community. And the flu vaccine doesn't protect them from everything.